Ken Nelson here. Welcome to my kitchen. The day has finally arrived. Eggs Benedict. I have the English muffins made. I have the hollandaise made. I have the hot pepper caviar or pearls, whatever you'd like to call them, made. My salmon has been curing for 3 or 4 days, and it's time to get this all together so I can have Eggs Benedict. Join me. So first things first, here is my salmon. I'm going to rinse under very cold water the salt and sugar and things off of it, and then I'm going to dry it on a paper towel. The salt and sugar are lovely if you're really a fan of salty, sugary fish. You can leave it on, but I prefer to take the brine off and just kind of pat it dry. It's lovely and it's ready to go. So now I'm going to make sure my knife is nice and sharp, and I think it probably needs to be sharpened just a little bit because the flesh of salmon needs to have a very sharp knife and make a very clean cut. We're going to put these into very thin pieces. Okay, there we go. And I just want a few nice thin slivers to use. Meanwhile, I'm going to put my English muffin on my toaster so that I can get that started. And I have a pan, a skillet actually, with water in it that we're going to poach the eggs in. And this is my hollandaise that I pre-made. I'm going to set it in the pan of water so it can warm as well. Now, for the salmon. Very thin slices at an angle. Just shave it and cut it as thinly as you can. This is just a little sticky from the salt and sugar, and so I'm going to wash my knife blade in between to make sure these are really super thin. This is cutting just beautifully. That one got to be a little thin and it didn't cut so well, so let's try another one here. There we go. That's working beautifully. That's going to be more than enough salmon for my Eggs Benedict here. Now, let me check the muffin. Ooh, I got it a little almost charry, but that will be just dandy. And the salmon is going to go back in the refrigerator and get used for some other appetizers or some salmon on down the track. Since it's been cured, it will keep and hold and do nicely. Now I'm going to move the camera around to the saucepan where the hollandaise is cooking and where the, well, it's not really cooking, it's just warming up. There we go. and where we're going to poach our egg. So let's see if this is warming. As the water gets hot, the hollandaise will start to loosen up, but the center of the jar will still stay a little cooler. So I'll want to stir it around a little bit to make sure it gets to be a nice uniform temperature here. And this is going to take just a little while. A deeper pan with a little more water would probably move along a little more quickly, but I thought I'd save two operations by heating the water in one pan and heating the hollandaise at the same time. It's starting to thin a little bit. It just needs to go for a few minutes longer. The bottom is nice and liquidy, but the top still needs to warm just a little bit. It's held its consistency and its flavor. So that's good. And there are bubbles forming in our pan now, so the water is getting ready to poach our egg. While this is nice and liquidy, I'm going to spoon 1 tablespoon out and put on top of my English muffin so that it'll have some nice flavor underneath the salmon. Okay, that is reaching its liquidus, so I'm going to take it out of the pan and I'm going to prepare my egg by cracking it into a shallow plate. And the reason I'm doing it this way is I found that it makes it a nice entry into the water. It keeps the yolk intact, and it keeps the white intact, so we get a nice consistency with it. Our water is just now coming to a boil and steaming. I'm going to turn this down to low, and I'm going to introduce the egg. There we go. The nice thing about doing it this way is by sliding it off of a plate and putting it into the water, the egg doesn't have a tendency to stick, and you don't have to pry it loose with a spatula to make sure that it's going to do nicely. So, that being said, I'm going to use a spoon and just spoon some of the hot water over the top to set the yolk and to set the white. I've prepared poached eggs several hours in advance of serving them, so I don't have to do this at the last minute. If you make sure that your white is cooked and the yolk is still liquid, you can take them out and put them on an oiled plate or a plastic container and keep them cool. You don't want them to get hot, but keep them cool, and just before you're ready to serve them, you can slide them into some warm water just to heat them up. And when you do that, you can then serve them right from there. So we're going to wait and watch for this to really firm up nicely. And then I'm going to take this out with a slotted spoon. I think just a little bit more. The white is just not quite set around the yolk. Okay, but now it looks like it is. So, with that, I'm going to use a slotted spoon, very gently lift it to the side, let it drain, make sure the white is really firm and nicely set. And with that, I've put my salmon on top of my English muffin, and now the poached egg on top of that. With that being done, I'm going to use some of my warmed hollandaise and just slide over the top of this so this is coated and leaves me just enough sauce to dip my muffin and salmon into. And now for the crowning glory, the caviar hot sauce. Yes, it is going to be delicious. I'm going to use one little twist of pepper on mine. And with that, I think it's time to just dive in. This is looking quite lovely. So here we go. First, a little puncture of the egg yolk to get it moving. What a combination. Salmon, egg, hollandaise, Tabasco, caviar, delicious. Well, there's just nothing like an Egg Benedict for breakfast, for brunch, for lunch, and with the caviar and the hollandaise. The only thing that could be added would be maybe some steamed spears of asparagus. Absolute perfection. And maybe a glass of champagne. Why didn't I think of that? Cheers!